Most of us can agree that you can't progress if you're not on the skateboard. If you're finding yourself injured and like you need to recover for long periods of time, then you might want to think about how you need to slow things down so that you don't find yourself in long states of injury where you can't practice or progress. Today I was at El Sereno skate park and I started to feel this uncomfortable pinching feeling on the inner side of my Achilles, and it had me thinking about how in the past I would get so frustrated because I didn't understand what was going on, and I didn't have this perspective that pain was communicating to me that I needed a rest. Many times we see this as bad news, but objectively it's just a form of communication that in the best case scenario we are intuitively able to process by just allowing myself to learn a little bit more about what my body needs so that it can recover as effectively as possible. Recovery doesn't mean going to the gym, lifting weights necessarily, but instead giving my body what it needs. Many times what it needs from, again, years of experience and listening to my body is a little bit more walking just to balance out my gait instead of just being heavy on my left side. Maybe I just need to literally lay down and sleep more. Maybe it was just a bad night of sleep. Could it be because I've been eating a lot of conchas, a lot of pastries, and my muscles aren't getting the nutrition they need? Instead, they're getting sugar and my blood is not flowing the way it needs to, or I'm not able to breathe as effectively or as efficiently as I usually am. It could be either of those reasons, but regardless, when I find myself in a situation where pain is clearly trying to tell me something, instead of meeting that with frustration, I meet it as feedback, as communication, so that I can slowly get back to some sort of homeostasis that will allow me to flow into my regular routine of skateboarding. And if it's a dialogue where you're getting frustration and you're feeling desperate and like you need to do everything right, and what follows are actions based off of anxiety where, you know, we might be trying to be perfect, but if you're finding that communication frustrate you or get you in a state of anxiety where all the actions you're doing after that are from pure desperation, if you find yourself in that situation, I want you to think about how you can slow things down and start with one thing. For me, it was something like taking a walk outside, because that way I'm moving, I'm getting fresh air, I'm outside, and it's not fully taking me away from what I would usually be doing, which is skating outside. I found after so many times of just choosing to stay indoors and sit down, I found and I felt that really worked against me. And so after years of processing this information, listening to my pain and that communication, I started to slowly improve my intuition in a sense where when I met pain, it's not something that I see as a bad thing, but instead as a sign to do my part, right? To rest a little more, to eat a little better, to drink water. Of course, best case scenario is when you have this dialed in, but many of us, including myself, don't have this process dialed in. When you find yourself in these situations, instead of feeling sorry for yourself or feeling like it's too late and there's no point, you just want to start with the first thing and then maybe stack the second and third. That way you slowly remind yourself and you build that practice of getting yourself back to skateboarding as opposed to making it worse. There's been many skaters that I've grew up skating with, and even skaters I've heard of, who once they get injured, they don't know how to deal with the fact that they can't skate. And so in order to fill all that need for dopamine or fill in that gap that skateboarding provided, they turn to substances, activities, and just overall options that aren't beneficial. We'll just leave it at that. And so if you're finding yourself in that situation, it's best to meet someone in the middle. So for instance, I'm not someone who drinks and have never gotten crazy into drinking, but what I have dived fully into is being a sugar addict, where I'm eating a lot of pastries, I'm eating a lot of, let's say, cheesecake. I love cheesecake. I have basically a lot of sugar. I don't know how else to put it. I just have a lot of sugar, and I've felt how that has worked against me as far as conditioning, as far as tendons, muscles, my Achilles feeling achy. And many times I would just pretty much stay sedentary, stationary. I would pretty much just sit down in my house or wherever and continue to atrophy, instead of slowly rebuilding myself by making sure I take on habits that are going to be a bit more fruitful as I go about recovering. Best case scenarios where you have these implemented and your intuition is dialed, many times it doesn't happen. Because I don't see skaters associating progressing on their board and progressing in their own health as something that works for each other, I find that it's so easy to ignore the health side, when in reality, if you don't have one, then the other one is sooner or later gonna fall apart as well. And so it's super important you don't set yourself up to ignore or make things worse on this side, so that your progression on the board is as consistent as possible. We all know consistency, being on the board, having that opportunity to reiterate is important. And I'm not here to say that isn't, or that doesn't make a big difference. Clearly, I speak a lot about it on this channel, but you also can't ignore this part of it. And just because I'm a coach, and usually when I'm at the skate park talking about this, it doesn't mean I can't include or suggest, hey, maybe breathe through your nose. Hey, maybe you shouldn't have that snack right now. Maybe you shouldn't have that sugary drink right now. Maybe just drink a water. Maybe just, save the snack for after. Doesn't mean that can't be of use and incorporated, so that the skill of skateboarding is something that can progress as well. So if you're someone who's finding yourself in this constant cycle of injury, going back on the board, injury, going back on the board, or maybe just time off the board and not really being able to be consistent, you might want to ask yourself if any of this has to do with your health, physically, mentally, and think about how you can start with the first step and build on top of that. I think it's pretty accepted that everything's connected. Mental and physical can't really be separated. For the sake of discussion, it's fun to separate the two, but regardless of if you're trying to take some time off and take more of a mindful health approach or a physical health approach, whether it's walking versus being indoors, sitting down, or reading something from a book instead of being on social media, both of them complement each other. And so think about how you're going to just choose one and allow the other one to follow, so that you give yourself the opportunity to progress on the board as efficiently as possible. Originally, this conversation came about in a call I had. So if you're interested in a call where we talk about how you can improve your skateboarding in the sense of control, skill, and making it a bit more efficient overall for yourself, you might want to consider sending me a message at profe.carlos on Instagram. It's at profe.carlos, or here on YouTube. If you want to check out the memberships, that's a great place to focus and get a bit more detail on the lives. And if you're someone who's interested in skate lessons, I'll go all over LA and even go out towards Long Beach, San Diego, OC, IE. So you can also hit me up on Instagram for that, or send me a message here on YouTube as well. Regardless, I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know how this topic found you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them down. Hope this video found you well, and I'll see you in the next one.